From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday provided business leaders, analysts, and investors with the most significant updates and projections on the economic performance of the country during the Philippine Economic Briefing, or PEB, in San Francisco, California. Together with his economic team, the chief executive took the opportunity to introduce the administration's economic agenda for the Philippines at the City and County of San Francisco, which serves as the host of this year's Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Economic Leaders Week, or AELW. In his closing remarks, the president boasted the Philippine economy's growth in the third quarter of 2023 of 5.9%, outpacing its neighboring countries, including that of China's, and is confident that the country's full-year economic growth will be somewhere between 6 and 7%. Let's listen to the closing remarks of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
It is a pleasure for me to close another successful Philippine economic briefing, this time here in San Francisco, home to the biggest, most innovative, and future-ready companies in the world. This marks our 12th international PEB and it's the fourth one in the United States. Since the beginning of this administration in 2022, the Philippine economic briefings have been a platform for the economic team to showcase what makes the Philippines one of the best places to do today. By bringing conversations on the country's macroeconomic fundamentals, policy roadmap, and investment opportunities closer to the international business community, we aim to reintroduce the Philippines and jumpstart meaningful, concrete, and mutually beneficial partnerships that will drive growth in the 21st century economy. Equally important, this is a deliberate and proactive way for us to generate feedback from our investor stakeholders. We consider these suggestions from our partners as vital in our efforts to shape our policies and programs to support economic transformation and recovery. Over the past year, we embarked on a journey towards economic transformation grounded on sound macroeconomic fundamentals, a favorable business climate, and agile risk management. More than 1 year on, in an uncertain global environment beset by slower growth, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical tensions, the Philippines has continued to rise above the tide. In 2022, the Philippines registered its highest full-year GDP growth in nearly 5 decades. Just last week, we announced that the Philippine economy grew strongly by 5.9% in the third quarter of 2023, bringing our growth for the first 3 quarters of the year to 5.5%. This is the fastest growth amongst major economies in Asia, outpacing Vietnam, Indonesia, China, and Malaysia. We are confident that the country will post a full-year economic growth that is close to the 6 to 7% target for 2023. Major international financial institutions and think tanks, including the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Office, agree. They project that the Philippines will outpace its major regional peers. In fact, Fitch Rating recently affirmed the stable outlook for the Philippines. This is on the back of strong growth, gradual fiscal consolidation, reductions in government debt to GDP ratio, and a comfortable external position supported by sound economic policies and robust economic reforms. Labor market conditions remain strong. We have been seeing consistently low levels of unemployment and improving quality of employment and underemployment that has been lessened and employment that has been generated. Inflation is slowly coming down. The October 2023 inflation slowed down to 4.9% from a frighteningly high 6.1% in September. We are committed to arresting inflation and maintaining overall price stability through supply-side interventions and demand-side management measures. This administration has put a favorable business environment at the center of our thrust to promote high-value investments. Commitment to purposeful reforms are also an enduring feature of Philippine economic policy making and planning. With the amendments that we have made to the Public Service Act, to the Foreign Investments Act, the Retail Trade Liberalization Act, and the Renewable Energy Act, we expect an influx of highly desirable investments in strategic sectors of the economy. We have also reformed the Philippines' fiscal incentive structure through the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or the CREATE Act, to attract both domestic and global firms to invest in strategically important sectors. Investments in rural areas and highly advanced technology and technology-enabled projects and activities are given top priority and consequently greater and longer incentives. Investments in the digital space are also highly prioritized. Incentives are given to projects covering research and development and those adopting advanced digital production technologies such as, for example, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, data analytics, cloud computing, and nanotechnology. These are complemented by responsive refinements in policies that promote private sector participation in key sectors, even as we pursue legislative measures. We rapidly reformed the country's public-private partnership framework to simplify the approval processes, ensure the viability and bankability of PPP projects, to cut the red tape, and pave the way for quality infrastructure development. These reforms support the Philippines' massive infrastructure drive. We are prioritizing the implementation of 197 infrastructure flagship projects worth around $155 billion with a sharp focus on upgrading physical and digital connectivity, water, agriculture, health, transport, and energy. In addition, we look forward to the operationalization of the Maharlika Investment Fund, the country's first ever sovereign investment fund. It will serve as an additional source and mode of financing for priority projects of the government, including the infrastructure flagship. These projects offer high rates of return and significant socio-economic impact. Currently, we have identified about 80 potential infrastructure projects that are financeable through that fund, the Maharlika Investment Fund. With a solid reform agenda and unabating growth amid headwinds, the Philippines is ready to take off as a leading investment hub in Asia. A wealth of opportunity awaits you in the Philippines, and we are ready to explore new horizons with your investments in the coming years. Welcome to the Philippines.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday witnessed the signing of several agreements from partners in the United States, both with the government and some private sector, on the sidelines of his attendance at the 30th Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Leaders Meeting, and related activities in San Francisco, California. Among these agreements are a Memorandum of Understanding between the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST, and Atmo Incorporated to build a high-resolution weather forecasting system for the Philippines using artificial intelligence, or AI technology. It was signed by DOST Undersecretary Maridon Sahagun, and ATMI Incorporated founder and Chief Executive Officer or CEO Alexander Levy. A cooperation agreement was also signed between Ayala Corporation President and CEO Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala and Ayala Corporation Health CEO and President Paulo Borromeo, Varian Philippines President and Managing Director Heinz Michael Horst Schmermer, and Advanced Oncology Solutions Varian Vice President Chuck Lindley. In his speech after the signing, the President said that these agreements hold a huge potential to reshape the Philippines landscape in various sectors. Let's listen to the speech of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
It is a good experience always to come and officiate, shall we say, or witness the agreements that we have come with our partners, some government to government and some on the private sector. They all hold potential, a great potential for the Philippines to reshape its landscape of clean energy, healthcare, pharmaceutical manufacturing, internet and satellite technology, and climate technology. The partnerships we celebrate today are manifest that of the unwavering commitment of the United States and the Philippines in terms of collaboration, innovation, and progress. The Philippines is one of the countries most affected by typhoons, with an annual average of 20 typhoons that bring heavy flooding and cause billions of pesos in damage to infrastructure, to agriculture, and to people's lives. ATMO and the Department of Science and Technology partnership on an AI-powered weather forecasting system will help the Philippines build its climate resilience. Astranis and Orbits have also joined forces to bring internet connectivity to unserved and underserved areas in the Philippines. This $400 million partnership will help bridge the digital divide and foster our digital transformation in the Philippines. In the energy sector, USNC and Meralco are undertaking a pre-feasibility study on micro-modular reactors, and this partnership is a significant step towards exploring clean and sustainable energy options for the Philippines. It is aligned with our commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to increase resilience to climate change. In the pharmaceutical sector, Lloyd Laboratories and Diffgen Pharmaceuticals have formed a joint venture for the product development and export of pharmaceutical products to the U.S. It is a significant step towards expanding the country's local production and promoting a competitive and robust local pharmaceutical industry. In the healthcare sector, AC Health and Varian have embarked on a groundbreaking partnership to improve access to quality cancer care in the Philippines. This initiative is a vital stride in the fight against cancer, and it reflects the Philippines' growing potential as a healthcare destination in Asia. What we have witnessed today will bring us closer to our vision of a more prosperous and sustainable Philippines. It is also a product of the lessons that we learned during the pandemic, and as you can see, the focus has been on the weaknesses that came to the fore in our systems, healthcare, energy, supply chains, all of these areas where we feel that where we identified weaknesses and gaps in our systems, and we are trying to address those. We see the potential of these undertakings to provide skilled jobs and entrepreneurship opportunities for Filipinos, better access to healthcare and digital education, attainment of climate, food, and energy security. In recent years as well, we have taken steps to create a more conducive environment for private sector investment and growth. These include streamlining business registration processes, investing in infrastructure and human capital development, and implementing the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or CREATE Act, which creates a transparent, targeted, and performance-based incentive system in our country. These efforts have paid off for the Philippines, as we have become one of the fastest-growing economies in Asia. The private sector has played a key role in this growth, generating 90% of jobs in the country. The private sector is also at the forefront of technological innovation in the Philippines. So I want to thank all the partners involved in these initiatives for their commitment, their dedication, and their far-reaching vision. We are committed to providing the necessary resources to ensure the success of these partnerships. I look forward to the realization of these plans and the benefits it will bring to our countries.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday addressed his fellow world leaders and the global business community at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, Chief Executive Officer, or CEO Summit in San Francisco, California. The APEC CEO Summit brings together CEOs, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, senior political leaders, and other stakeholders from the Asia-Pacific region for a business dialogue on global opportunities and challenges that shape the economic, environmental, and societal trends in the region. In his opening remarks, the Philippine President emphasized that in order to sustain prosperity and progress, the world should be at peace, built on solid economic foundation. Let's listen to the opening remarks of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
With our distinguished panel, I am pleased to join all of you this morning as I commend our host, chair, and organizers, the U.S., ABAC US, and CAPC, for holding this APEC CEO Summit at such a critical time for our region. Our resolve to gather today is already testament to our commitment to improve the lives of the people of our region. We meet at a challenging time when bleak forecasts loom over the progress we have made since the pandemic. As member economies of APEC, we are accountable to our people and future generations to deliver sustained growth and prosperity. And while signs point to darker clouds, this opportunity to collaborate once more is light in the economic horizon in our efforts to preempt a prolonged downturn and its very negative consequences. My biggest learning from the COVID-19 pandemic is that it disproportionately affected our already disadvantaged, marginalized, and underrepresented sectors. What this ensuing recovery period should teach us is how to address the cracks and lacks in our policies and systems, and what the challenges of today, including food, energy, security, digital and green transformation, and certainly climate change, climate action, present an opportunity to do this right, to ensure that no one is left behind in the pursuit of our economic and financial goals. The economic model and international trading system that we have worked for, that has worked for us for decades, and have, even for APEC region alone, resulted in heightened economic growth and lifted millions and millions out of poverty. These are now getting undermined by criticisms due to apparent and exacerbating gaps. Strengthening the system that has led to our cooperation and development must entail addressing the core issues and areas for improvement, which are, from the perspective of the Philippines, and most, if not all, of our economies, distributing wealth and welfare effects more effectively and equitably, to ensure that our economies develop in a manner that is resilient, sustainable, and mitigates negative externalities. These are of paramount importance because we can only be as strong as the weakest members of our economies, of our societies. Regardless of how much progress we make in these halls, if such does not translate to a better quality of life about resiliency for all, we will remain derailed by even the most subtle of shocks and insecurities that are beyond our control. But equally important is the recognition of the key roles and contributions these groups have made in our transition and will make in our continuing transition. They do not only provide the most important voice in terms of the bare minimum that we should be according, but also knowledge, skills, and talents so far untapped or underutilized in our efforts, especially towards the circular economy, environmental preservation and protection, utilizing indigenous sources and nature-based solutions, and adopting sustainable practices. Disadvantaged groups should also be capacitated and empowered to assist and align with our strategies to ensure bandwagon support for sustainability and an expeditious and decisive push essential in the carving of a collectively beneficial path forward. Cognizant that our priorities, our strategies, and approaches differ, platforms such as the APEC prove instrumental in finding policy congruences and coordination of our efforts. I see 5 elements that are critical to this. First, our table must continue to expand to accommodate seats to represent all of our people, and the U.S. hosting of APEC this year has expertly demonstrated how this should be done through stakeholder engagements, policy dialogues, and expert consultations. But as decision makers, ours is the role to take heed and constructively discuss how to stitch our differing contexts together and multi-directional approaches so they move as one. For the Philippines, a just energy transition will focus not only on workers and communities that will be affected by geography-based and socio-economic strategies, but also on the large segment of micro, small, and medium enterprises that make up 99.5% of our businesses and that continue to rely on dependable, accessible, and affordable energy. The nuances in our push are also informed by the needs of vulnerable segments of our population, including those who do essential work in the functioning of our supply chains, such as maritime and healthcare workers, whom we owe the assurance of international equity in the sustainable transition of their respective industries. Second, the partnership of our governments with stakeholders, especially the business sector, must both broaden in scope and deepen in commitments. International equity calls for moving away from traditional mere shared financing to formulating frameworks and adopting models that will enable the mainstreaming of sustainable practices in an inclusive manner. Examples include sharing of aggregated consumer data from industries to enable evidence-based and scalable public programs and projects, recalibration and standardization of reporting structures and assessment templates to take stock of our progress in an equitable and sustainable growth, and not least, collaboration on the development of environmental, social, and governance, responsible business conduct, and good regulatory practices, and other partnership frameworks that will balance profit and prosperity with our accountability to the environment and our people, and help ensure that not one group is adversely affected. This administration's partnership with the Philippines Private Sector Advisory Council forges a collaborative environment that more easily generates jobs and pursues future-ready, inclusive, and sustainable industrialization. Third, the race to sustainability comes with the risk of escalating protectionism. As economies embrace new technologies, temptations abound to push for one's own profit from the development of these technologies or to discriminate imports from those deemed non-compliant to environmental standards. Those have deleterious effects to not only our supply chains, but will also further exclude our people, especially our small-scale producers, suppliers, and exporters, from participating in global value chains and thereby limiting their participation in the production and distribution of products and services that facilitate our sustainable transition. Developing economies and our people are most at risk of such alienation, and instead we must intensify capacity building, economic cooperation, and technical assistance, knowledge and data sharing among our economies so that each is empowered and provided with the tools towards sustainable development while creating complementarities in our economies and further opportunities for trade and investment. Fourth, markets should be left to operate as optimally as we can. But where they fail, government needs to intervene, and economic reforms should be used to increase the effectiveness of provision of services, redistribute benefits aimed at reducing inequalities and increasing living standards, and strengthening our economic foundations to resist shocks and crises and further stimulate growth. The Philippine Development Plan through to 2028 induces the economic and social transformation of our economy to accelerate poverty reduction and reinvigorate job creation by steering it to a high growth trajectory, including by maximizing opportunities in the green and digital economies, especially for our untapped sectors. We have made much progress by universalizing and increasing access to many of our basic and social services throughout the years. This year alone, through the Philippines Agrarian Emancipation Act, we have condoned more than 600,000 small farmers of loans amounting to more than $1 billion. This would allow the agricultural sector to develop, with farmers now having their own land, capacitated with profits and skills to assist in increasing productivity and modernizing the sector while fueling sustainable rural development, themselves being the experts. The democratization of land and agriculture will not only strengthen and diversify our export market, but also, by building competition, help stave off protectionism. Policy dialogues, especially those that promote inclusion, should therefore remain an important tool in APEC to allow us to coordinate our efforts, learn from our individual experience, and facilitate convergences in our economies that will narrow the income divide, while affording especially developing economies with some policy space to identify and to explore priorities that are specific to each context. Finally, and probably the biggest challenge that we have, is to increase the level of our ambition and enlarge the scope of our cooperation. The issues that we face, supply chain shocks, food and energy insecurity, natural disasters, health emergencies, the climate crisis, demand that we augment our efforts to address, mitigate, and preempt the negative economic impacts that they bring. Guiding us is the APEC Patrajaya Vision 2040, which itself recognizes that progress must be delivered not only in trade and investment liberalization and facilitation, but also in digitalization and innovation and the strong, balanced, secure, inclusive, and sustainable growth. In this regard, let us not waver in both implementing actions and initiatives from our various agreements and partnerships and identifying areas for further collaboration in pursuit of equitable development, including by ensuring that each one is provided with opportunities to participate in the regional and global economy and made resilient from burgeoning shocks. These are just a few ideas, and we have a panel here to guide us with their expert insights on a clear and pragmatic way forward. We must leverage APEC's core value propositions as the premier regional forum in the Asia-Pacific, incubator of innovative ideas, pathfinder for collaborative solutions to emerging trade issues, and a platform for forward-looking and responsive economic and trade policies. We must continue to build on APEC's partnership with the private sector and be more in sync with the APEC Business Advisory Council and our other stakeholders. We must act regionally. We must also shrink our intentions globally by finding coherence in our work streams with those of other economies of the world and other regional and international organizations. I wish to emphasize once more that global and regional economic governance platforms such as APEC are geared towards averting conflict because sustained prosperity and progress are only possible in a world that is at peace, which in turn must be a peace that is built on a solid economic foundation. Thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts, and I wish you all a meaningful summit. Thank you. Mabuhay.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Singapore FinTech Festival, or SFF 2023, formally commenced its first day as the much-anticipated global event gathers more than 500 exhibitors from 134 countries to showcase the latest trends in the field of financial technology through meaningful discussions and partnerships in Singapore. One of the highlights of the SFF's first day is the participation of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., who addressed the festival participants through a hologram. According to the organizers, he is the first ever head of state to deliver a speech using this groundbreaking method since the festival started in 2016.
It is with great anticipation that I represent the Philippines and the Filipino people for this year's Singapore FinTech Festival. This year's event holds great significance not only for its implications in the development of our financial sector, but also for all the sectors that are looking forward to a brighter digital future. It will serve as a global platform for sharing learning and cooperation, essential elements in nurturing an inclusive and sustainable financial sector. In the Philippines, we remain committed to fostering an environment that promotes collaboration and propels the momentum of our digital transformation. Let us come together and harness the power of technology to create a more sustainable, inclusive, and prosperous world in this digital age.
The Philippines is also among the exhibitors at the event, debuting the Bagong Pilipinas Philippines Country Pavilion, which aims to showcase the country as an investment and digital hotspot. This is achieved through the collaborative efforts of FinTechAlliance.ph and the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO. The SFF 2023 is a three-day event that runs from the 15th to the 17th of November and convenes leaders and experts in finance, technology, and public policy worldwide.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Wednesday held a roundtable meeting with technology companies and venture capitalists, including Silicon Valley firms in San Francisco, California. During the meeting, the Philippine president admitted that the country lacks trained individuals in the fields of artificial intelligence, or AI, and cybersecurity, but said his administration has been focusing on the upskilling and reskilling of Filipino workers in order to keep up with the growing demand. Knight Dragon Chief Executive Officer or CEO David DeWalt said his company and other technology firms in the roundtable discussion are looking forward to bringing all the technologies, particularly generative AI, to the Philippines. DeWalt said the planned investments of the technology companies, including Knight Dragon, would be beneficial to the Philippines considering its young and powerful workforce. Knight Dragon is a leading venture capital firm for cybersecurity, security, safety, and privacy. Visa Chief Executive Officer or CEO Ryan McInerney said generative AI will be a leveling force for small businesses, noting that Filipinos now use the largest platforms to buy things online. He said generative AI will give micro businesses, nano businesses, and small businesses the tools and capabilities to provide Filipinos a rich shopping and commerce experience. The roundtable meeting was co-organized by DeWalt, Bain & Company CEO Emmanuel Maceda, Crescent Point Group Vice Chairperson Thomas Pompidou, and the Department of Trade and Industry or DTI. Also present during the meeting were Microsoft Managing Director Michelle Gonzalez, Mandiant, a Google company, CEO Kevin Mandia, Group of the Government of Singapore Investment Corporation or GIC head Chris Emmanuel, Plug and Play Ventures CEO Saeed Amidi, Altimeter CEO Brad Gerstner, HP, formerly Hewlett-Packard CEO Enrique Lores, MasterCard co-president Ling Hai, and Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, the Philippines Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA on Wednesday afternoon welcomed the latest batch of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs who returned to the country amid the escalating conflict between Israel and the militant group Hamas. This is the fourth batch of 13 Filipino repatriates from the Gaza Strip and their families who arrived at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA Terminal 3 on board Qatar Airways. This brings the total number of repatriated Filipinos from Gaza to 102. The group is composed of Filipinos with their Palestinian spouses and children. According to the Philippine Embassy in Egypt, the repatriation operation was in coordination with the Philippine Embassy in Jordan and the Philippine Embassy in Israel. The Philippine Embassy also expressed its appreciation to the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for its assistance in the entry of Filipinos into Egypt through the Rafah border. The group was welcomed by DFA Undersecretary Eduardo De Vega as soon as they reached Cairo. They were provided with accommodation before their flight back to the country. During his recent visit to Egypt, De Vega thanked Egypt for its assistance during the evacuation of Filipinos from Gaza as well as Sudan in April.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, we would like to invite everyone to come and visit our Facebook page at Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You will be able to hear and view our Filipino and English programs, including news updates here in the Philippines. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.